Jeez, that fucking hurt. Yeah, I'm fine. Took a nasty fall, but otherwise I'm good. Good old Kiryu's like an iPhone. If you don't charge it every 5 hours, it shuts down completely. Well, how long is it gonna take to recharge the battery? 6 months? We're never getting off this island! I just needed to get my stuff, that's it. Yeah, I'll find something else to do. You know, Jurassic World Rebirth wasn't the only dinosaur movie that released in 2025. Primitive War is another dinosaur movie that released in 2025, the same year as Jurassic World Rebirth. However, unlike Jurassic World Rebirth, which was the 7th movie in a pre-established franchise, Primitive War was based off a comic book called Primitive War. The premise of the comic is actually pretty simple. A bunch of American soldiers in Vietnam have to go on a classified mission, and what they find on this classified mission is, well, dinosaurs. Honestly, this pretty cool and wacky premise kinda does lend itself to a pretty good movie, especially considering that there aren't really a lot of fantastical movies that have Vietnam War aesthetics, with the only real exception being Kong Skull Island. So this movie should kinda be a slam dunk. What's the worst that can happen? While on the outside, this movie just looks like a fun action film, if you look deeper within its production, you'll find out that this thing is riddled with controversies. This includes stuff like using AI in their concept art, one of the actors having a lot of sexual assault accusations, apparently not paying their VFX artists well enough, and the director saying that he wants to avoid modern messaging, as well as endorsing conservative reviewers like Nerdrotic and The Critical Drinker.
Gigantic, milk-swollen titties.
Sheesh, with a lineup of controversies like that, what does little old me think about this film? Well, much like Jurassic World Rebirth, I have watched this movie not once, but twice, and to say that I do have some interesting thoughts would be a bit of an understatement. However, I'm gonna do something different by starting with what I didn't like about this movie, and then moving on to what I did like about this movie. And as to why I'm starting with my grievances before going into my praises, well, you're gonna have to watch this video to find out. Let's stop wasting time and just jump right into it. For starters, I think the characters in this movie are okay enough, I suppose. They are your standard military guys that are put in the Vietnam War that have to deal with some Vietnam shenanigans, whilst also dealing with the aforementioned dinosaurs. They do the job fine enough, but I'm not gonna lie, I kinda wish there was a little bit more character to these guys than just Vietnam soldiers. However, them just being ordinary American soldiers in Vietnam is even more of an issue because you can see blips of character within some of these characters. Like, there is an iota of something uniquely interesting within these characters, but I don't think it's explored enough. Like, some of these characters genuinely go crazy or have to cope by doing drugs during the war that they have caused, but I feel like that isn't explored enough. Especially when considering the greater themes of the movie, but we'll get to that later. This also extends to the enemy faction of the movie, but I can easily forgive it because they are just meant to be some extra corpses for the dinosaurs to eat, as well as just an adversary for the characters to fight outside of the dinosaurs. Although I have to add that some of the actors who put on a Russian accent kind of remind me of when Pyrocynical puts on his Russian accent.
Pack hunters. They like to have the pack on the ground and the other half in the treetops.
Yo, what is up? My name is Ivan. I'm here to kidnap all your children. Curfew.
I love war! But yeah, I think the characters are fine, but I kind of wish there was a little bit more to them than just what they are currently. The dinosaur designs are also kind of a mixed bag for me. On one hand, you got some really solid designs. But on the other hand, you got some really mediocre designs too. There are some dinosaurs with some mild inaccuracies, and in the case of something like, say, the giant sauropods, who I think they might be Dreadnoughtus, look like they were ripped straight from Jurassic World. And then you got the T-Rexes, who, whilst mostly looking fine, they do have that V-Rex body shape that looks really weird. Like, why did they give the T-Rexes the V-Rex phenotype? It just makes them look weird, but not as weird as the sound they make when they snap their jaws. But yeah, aside from the few outliers I mentioned, most of the dinosaur designs are actually pretty good, and I will talk about them more later on in this video. The CGI, much like the dinosaurs, is also pretty hit or miss at times, though unlike the dinosaurs, it's not as blatant, because 95% of the time it's actually really good CGI. Though with that 5%, it is pretty noticeable. This ranges from stuff like YouTube quality blood effects, to this one shot where the Spinosaurus is eating the Triceratops. Like, it's not rendered fully, it needed more work. But aside from the few blips of mediocre quality, I think the rest of the CGI is actually perfectly fine. However, my biggest problem that I have with this movie is how it tackles its own themes, of which it doesn't tackle them very well. Whilst the director did say that there wouldn't be any modern messaging, the film still has some kind of themes to it. Themes like how war can affect the common man, how war can affect nature itself, as well as themes of playing with God. This is straight up some Metal Gear type shit, but with dinosaurs, which honestly should be a match made in heaven. The only problem is that these themes aren't explored enough. Most of the time, these themes are relegated to a lot of boring dialogue exposition scenes, and are taking a back seat to the deluge of action that happens within this movie. Which I guess would be fine if these messages weren't all that deep and complex, but I think these messages are actually really good to tell within a film like this. But again, the themes just sort of take a backseat to literally everything else. And because of that, I feel like the themes and messages of this movie aren't really explored enough. Now granted, there are a couple scenes that do relate to the message of the movie. One of the main soldier guys kills themselves. The female character takes heroin to cope with the loss of her colleagues. One of the T-Rex babies dies by one of the communist soldiers, and the T-Rex parents go mayhem on the communist camp. Now granted, these moments are still small, but I kinda wish the movie had more of these small moments that relate to the themes of war and playing with God and nature. But again, a lot of this stuff just sorta takes a backseat and isn't prioritized more. In fact, that's kind of the main problem with this movie. Its priorities are all out of whack. All the important stuff like themes and characters are sort of just taking a back seat. And the only thing that it prioritizes above all else is the action and dinosaur scenes. So it really is no big surprise that I really like this movie.
So what do we do with these new add-ons?
I don't know. Why did you even bring them here in the first place? As I stated before, I watched this movie twice. However, what I failed to mention is that I watched Primitive War first on a free pirating movie site, and then again on Hulu. And when I watched it that second time, I accidentally ended up enjoying it. This is why I also decided to get my grievances out of the way first, because when you move past all the problems of this movie, what you get is something really stupid. Which works for me, because I am also really stupid. The action in this movie is bombastic, it's violent, but above all else, it's really entertaining. I don't know, maybe it's because I set my standards so low on the rewatch, but I really did enjoy the action sequences a second time around. From the Quetzalcoatluses eating people out, to the T-Rexes destroying the communist camp, and that final sequence where the Utah Raptors Zerg rush the last remaining soldiers. It's stupid, but I absolutely fucking love it. It's also a really violent movie. Again, you got Quetzalcoatluses tearing people apart and eating out their intestines. You got Utah Raptors tearing out people's organs. And there's all this blood and violence, and I absolutely fucking love it. It's so good. I wish more dinosaur movies were this violent. Hey, speaking of dinosaurs, whilst I did have some minor complaints about a good chunk of the dinosaurs, I think there were enough good designs to outweigh the mediocre or at least bad designs. Hell, ironically enough, some of the dinosaurs here are even better than the ones in Jurassic World Rebirth, if you could believe it. Like, for example, the Quetzalcoatlus. The Quetzalcoatluses have this more brown coloration with a lighter tan underbelly, with some red accents near the eyes. Oh, and the Quetzalcoatlus actually looks like a Quetzalcoatlus! Like, this is just straight up a paleo-accurate Quetzalcoatlus, and not something pretending to be a Quetzalcoatlus like in Jurassic World Rebirth. Like, no notes, this is an absolutely perfect Quetzalcoatlus design. The Spinosaurus is also greatly designed as well, because it's also paleo-accurate just like the Quetzalcoatlus. Like, that is straight up just a paleo-accurate Spinosaurus. No notes, it's perfect. I also like the greenish brown that they gave this guy. I don't know, it looks really cool, and it makes sense given the environment it resides in. I also want to give a special shout out to this Suchomimus. Again, great design, no notes. I love the black and yellow it has on it. It only appears in 2 scenes, but it's a fantastic design. Love this guy. The Deinonychus are also really well designed too. Whilst they are a little bit unremarkable, what I like about the Deinonychus design is, much like with all the other great designs, it's paleo accurate. However, what I also like is that some of the Deinonychus have a unique feather pattern to them. Not one raptor looks the same as the other raptor, which is a nice detail, and I actually quite like it. But come on, let's be real. These aren't the feathered theropods you wanted me to talk about. No. You wanted to know my thoughts on the Utah Raptors. Yeah, they're the best dinosaur in this movie. Like a good chunk of the better designs in this movie, it's mainly because they are paleo-accurate. And, much like the Deinonychus, each raptor has a unique color pattern as well. Though in this case it is actually kinda hard to see because most of the scenes with the Utah Raptors takes place at night, but they are there. Most of the raptors do actually look unique, which I think is kinda cool. What I also like about the Utah Raptors is how psychotic they are. In our second introduction to the Utah Raptors, we see one of them pull our main characters into a secluded area to eat him. But whilst he's eating him, he's also shutting him up so then he doesn't make much noise whilst he's eating him alive. It's a small moment, but it is a really cool moment to show that these things are not only psychotic, but also intelligent. And I kinda wish they were like that throughout the whole movie. Yeah, that's another problem that I have with this movie. A lot of the dinosaurs' personalities are kinda inconsistent. One minute, there are scenes that show that these animals are more complex than we let on, but then the next minute they just turn into movie monsters. Like, I don't know, I just kinda wish there was more consistency with these prehistoric beasts personally. And this is especially a problem for the Utah Raptors, because like I said, there is this whole scene where one of them tries to shut up its prey from making so much noise, but then by the end of the movie, they're just Zerg rushing the human characters with the guns, and they're all just dying left and right. But regardless, I still do really like these Utah Raptors. They're not only greatly designed, but when they want to be, they could be genuinely terrifying. The CGI in this film is also really good, all things considered. Like I said before, there are problems that I do have with the CGI, but aside from those problems, the CGI in this movie is consistently pretty good. The dinosaurs mostly interact well with the environment, the fluidity of the movement of the dinosaurs are pretty well done, and everything else looks rendered properly, again, aside from maybe a few shots, which is kind of funny because A, feathers are apparently harder to animate than just regular skin, and B, this movie had a $7 million budget, which, for a VFX heavy movie like this, is not really a lot, which is even more hilarious because aside from a couple shots like I said, most of the CGI actually looks pretty solid. It's almost like you don't need the GDP of a small country to make a VFX heavy movie, huh? But yeah, like I said, aside from a couple problems with the CGI here and there, most of the CGI is actually pretty solid. In fact, that's how I would describe the movie as a whole. It has its problems. Like a lot of problems. Like a lot of problems. But if you just turned your brain off, what you get is a pretty fun action movie with some paleo-accurate dinosaurs in there. It's fun, it's energetic, it has some really cool scenes, it's hyper-violent, it's stupid, but that's what I like about it. This is basically just a super fun popcorn flick, and if you can accept it as that, you will genuinely have a good time. Now, do I wish some of the CGI was improved a little bit more? Yes. Do I wish the characters were improved a little bit more? Yes. Do I wish the themes were explored a little bit more? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, the movie is still really fun, and I'm glad that I did give it a second chance. Hell, if anything, I kinda want more of this. Apparently, this movie did sadly bomb very hard at the box office, but even despite of that, we are getting a sequel in 2027, which is actually pretty cool. Honestly, I do hope that they can fix the problems that this movie had for the sequel, because I genuinely do want more of this type of stuff. Yeah, it's flawed, its quality is inconsistent, some things should have been built up more, but it's violent, it's entertaining, and above all else, it's pretty damn fun. And I'm giving this movie a 7.5 out of 10. I'm Xenofilms Productions, and... What is it?
I gave the mutant some weed. I also gave Flesh some weed. I still have some weed. Want some?
Please be good. Please.